ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene and you are listening to Duran ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today, it is a beautiful Monday. And of course, today, for those who are working in Kuala Lumpur is a holiday for you guys because it's Hari Wilayah Persekutuan, or the federal day, the federal holiday. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a good sleep, waiting for just to cover up all the sleepless nights and days that you have in your previous week. And for those in Selangor, fret not, you'll be having your holiday tomorrow because tomorrow is Thai Pusam. It will be holiday for a few states in Malaysia, namely Penang and Selangor. And all the best. Hopefully, all tomorrow will be a very good Thai Pusam. But for those who are living in the areas nearby Batu Caves and Selayang, perhaps you might not want to use that particular road, and probably would choose to use the highway, as the road will be congested. Where all the people all over Malaysia will be jamming there to celebrate Thai Pusam in Batu Caves. And just to go back to our focus on ASEAN Daily, we have first off news about Jokowi. As you all know, Jokowi has took office since October, and today, this week marks Indonesia's Jokowi's 100 days of presidency. Nevertheless, just like Obama, I suppose, after 100 days, his presidency is marked with scandals and a bit of a falling support. Following a slew of public scandals and broken campaign promises, Indonesia's new hope is hemorrhaging support. This was reported in a few newspapers and also in Time magazine, a review on his presidency after his first 100 days in office. Of course, as we all know, during the campaign period, he has been seen as the new hope of Indonesia's democracy, and yeah, he does brought a real hope to the people of Indonesia and also to the economy. He pledged to have a 7% increase in terms of the economic growth. And he also made a few economic promises, a few campaign promises to the people of Indonesia. Nevertheless, a few issues he has been in conflict of. And one of the issue is the recent death penalty against drug traffickers, and of course issues related to the way he conduct his leadership and the way he proved himself as the Indonesia's president. I guess it's still not on par yet to the expectation of the people of Indonesia. Nevertheless, all the best, Jokowi. We hope that the next 100 days he would be able to change the way Indonesian people see him as the future leader of what Indonesia ought to be. Next off, we talk about a leader that will be visiting China in May. I'm talking about Indian Prime Minister Modi. He is scheduled to visit China in May, and Narendra Modi will be visiting and meeting the foreign minister during his 3-day visit in Beijing. He will be visiting and meeting the premier of China in the next 3 days in May when they will be discussing a slew of issues. Most probably, it will be focusing more on economic ties between both nations. Although, just to highlight that recently also US President Barack Obama has been having a high-profile visit to India, which also aiming at bolstering ties between India and the US, although neither countries mentioned China by name during Obama's visit. But the US president welcomed a greater role for India in Asia, in the Asia Pacific. I guess it's somehow a quote to say that India, you should be the one taking charge of Asia and not the other way around with China. And of course, it also mentioned that India should be the one that be more involved in issues related to Southeast Asia, namely the South China Sea. Well, when it comes to Prime Minister Modi, he is seen widely as taking more assertive line on China than the previous governments. But experts say that he will be careful not to alienate China, which is, of course, one of the biggest investors that India is desperately needing to bolster India's economy. What is seen as Chinese President Xi Jinping for India's visit in May, he is expected to take Modi to his home province in Shanxi to repay the hospitality he received in the India's premier's home state last September. On the other hand, we have a news related to the Philippine government. Is an updated news about how Philippine government and the rebel negotiators issue a joint plea for ceasefire. So Philippine government and Muslim rebel negotiators, both party issue a historic peace accord that now issue a plea for the country to stick to a historic peace accord that is now in peril after a deadly clash between the elite squad of the Philippines, where more than 40 people were killed against the guerrilla, which was said to be headed by 2 Malaysian terrorists. And both sides told a press briefing in Kuala Lumpur that the 2 days of talks in Malaysia on disarming the rebels has made progress, but they vow not to waver in implementing an accord on the voluntary surrender of weapons. The Moro Islamic Liberation Front has waged a decade-long blood insurgency, as we all know, in the Muslim southern Philippines. But an accord signed last year has raised hope in a lasting peace. What it seems now is not happening. In fact, they have to stick with the peace accord because the other alternative is simply unthinkable. It will only bring more chaos if and more terrorist activities if people in Moro and also the Philippines as a whole do not really take the peace accord seriously. And the talks in Malaysia mark the first formal sit-down between the two sides since a botched Philippine police raid on the southern island of Mindanao last week. The operation targeted a wanted terrorism suspect, which is both Malaysian and also a Filipino. And the rebel chief negotiator Mohanger Iqbal also said that the Moro Islamic Liberation Front was fully committed to the peace process. So in a way, for President Benigno Aquino, he's moving in the right direction, definitely. It's just that they need to make sure that the spirit of the peace accord is being channeled towards all people in the Philippines, especially the Bangsa Moro people, to ensure that the Muslim rebels, those who are against the peace accord itself, would be the minority group in the whole situation that we are seeing right now, and to somehow divorce the Islamic values of the people there against the extremism, the extremist ideology that is being perpetuated by this extreme group. So all the best, and hopefully things will get better in Mindanao. We will take a short break. When we return, we will have more news from Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you're listening to us at ASEAN Daily, where we bring you news from Southeast Asia. So we began our news today earlier with Jokowi, Jokowi's 100 days, with the Philippines peace accord, and also and also on Prime Minister Modi's visit to China in May. But there's another update which was really heartbreaking recently about the execution or the death of another one of the victim of ISIS. So the guy is called Kenji. Kenji Goto. He was finally being murdered by the terrorist group. I was speechless because I was hoping that at least he could be safe.
And even a lot of people from Japan were not aware about this, and they had to wait for it to be reported on Twitter before they actually got the news. And they learned it in the morning through the news, some special edition newspapers that were quick to report the news of Kenji Goto. And of course, a lot of people are speechless, they are angry, they are sad. This was something that was totally uncalled for, and even the images of Kenji Goto's killing itself, it was published, and a lot of people were not happy about that, saying that they should respect his privacy and not circulate pictures of him.
And I think a lot of people are pointing their fingers on Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for not being able to handle the situation well enough to save the life of the two Japanese men. And for Shinzo Abe, he seems like he couldn't do anything much about it, and they didn't comply at all to the demands of ISIS at paying ransom, at also exchanging prisoners. So
it seems that his defense is he doesn't want to give in to terrorism, and his logic was that if he actually meet the demands of all these terrorists, that means that Japan or he himself will be losing out to the terrorists, and in that aspect he didn't want to meet their demands, and he was hoping trying to come up with other way to solve the problem, but apparently he is too late, and he failed to come up with an alternative solution to the problem, and that costed the life of Mr. Goto.
I actually wouldn't agree with what the Japanese Prime Minister's view on how to address this problem. I mean, I would probably be as angry as the rest of the Japanese society, because this is a hostage crisis, and of course in a hostage crisis you can either meet the demands of the captiver, or you don't. But in this case he didn't, and he didn't even come up with an alternative that is strong enough to ensure the ISIS terrorists would be able to free the Kenji Goto. So it seems like Kenji Goto's fate is already sealed in a way.
And hopefully this will not be just another death. This should be a wake-up call for Shinzo Abe and also for all
World leaders.
all the world leaders to come together and realize that this is really a serious problem that's affecting us now, and that they really need to come up with a solution quick enough, or we'll have more people dying.
The difference between ISIS and the rest of the terrorist groups, that as far as I can see, based on my rough observation, is they are 0% of hostages that are being freed for no reason. So all the execution that were happening by the ISIS terrorists seems to be serious case. In a way, they either meet the demand or the hostages will be killed. In this case, almost all of them, if not all, were being killed in the most brutal way possible.
And of course, we have a lot of leaders who have stepped up to voice their dissatisfaction or their anger, and some of them is the U.S. President Barack Obama. We have David Cameron. We have Francois Hollande. We also have Tony Abbott. And of course, reacting alone is not enough, because anyone can condemn ISIS and what they're doing, but to actually come up with a solid plan to combat this is another issue altogether.
It would be something that I think even Malaysian leaders or leaders from Muslim countries need to address this. And talking about issues related to politics, we move on to Hong Kong, where we haven't really report about this for quite some time, but this is regarding on Hong Kong's democracy. So apparently, the new development now is Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters are returning to the streets. Thousands of pro-democracy activists have returned to the streets of Hong Kong for their first big rally since the mass protests last year.
And last year's Occupy demonstrations at their peak were attended by at least tens of thousands of people from all walks of life. But because of a lot of violent clashes with the police, a lot of people were getting arrested and some of them badly injured. So they actually dismantled the whole protest, the whole thing in about December. But they decided that they're not going to be quiet anymore. They've kind of taken 1 month off the whole thing, and they feel all empowered to come up and to fight for their democracy again. And this is also to show the leaders that this is not just a temporary thing. It's not they're not just gonna protest and then forget about it as time goes on. They still want what they want. And
so
that's
they
quite
will
different from what happens here in Malaysia.
So similar to Bersih, I guess there will be Hong Kong protest 2.0, 3.0, I suppose.
Probably, but they're not giving it any new name. They're still calling it the Yellow Umbrella Revolution.
And yeah, if you look at the visuals, they are thousands of or hundreds of yellow umbrella decorating the streets. By having the protesters holding it. But at the same time, of course, it's quite optimistic to see the students, the younger generation protesting against the government. But it also looks at, if you look at the bigger picture, the government seems to have that very nature of what Malaysian government has as well, to just keep quiet and step back and let it run.
And send down the police to do the dirty work.
In this case, the police didn't even do anything. They let the march to go by peacefully, because they know, I think probably they learned that the more violent the government becomes, the more the news become like a viral issue. But if the government just let it be and keep quiet and not even say yes or no about this, actually the government could be able to stem off the revolution altogether. So that's why the spirit of the revolution must be strong enough to withstand the silence.
And those who went to the streets to protest also said that in order to protect whatever that's left, whatever freedom that's left with the people, with the country, they want to protect it and they want to preserve it. And if that means they have to go down there and march, even if no one is listening, even if no one cares, they are still gonna do it because it's their country, and they feel that obligation to go down there and fight for that for whatever rights that they feel they deserve. But of course, the ultimate goal is to get that autonomy that they want and to be free from Beijing when it comes to the elections, especially the one in 2017.
Definitely. But you know, the thing is, a lot of the policymakers, those that are working for the government, they are actually telling the people, the protesters in Hong Kong, they can't really threaten the central authorities. And in this case, I think they are referring not just to the chief executive of Hong Kong, but also I think the larger picture is China. China will be and will always be the one the one deciding what Hong Kong ought to be. So I think for Hong Kongers, this is a crossroads for them, since China will be, one of the strongest, or is already a strong, one of the strongest economic power in the world.
So it seems they are still pretty optimistic about making that change, and they are down there making their protests. So we'll have to see what's the outcome of this, if China can really feel the pressure, or like you say, it's nothing to them because they're already in charge of the whole thing.
So we will take another short break. When we return, more news from Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Okay, returning back. We want to report something about the Philippines. Of course, earlier we reported about how the Philippines is trying to work together with the rebel groups in Mindanao to be able to address the issue of terrorism because of the recent death of 44 elite squad of the Philippines. But at the same time, we also want to report something else about the Philippines. As we all know, when it comes to the economic development of the country, people always think that the Philippines is the sick man of Southeast Asia. But I guess it's no longer the issue now. I mean, recently our trip to Manila has somehow taught us that the Philippines is definitely a robust nation when it comes to economic development.
It's very different, all the things that we read about Philippines, or even the kind of perception that we get from pictures, from online articles, where they always try to paint Philippines as such. Well, in this case, they say sick man, but they usually try to paint Philippines as kind of like a pathetic country with very bad infrastructure, with very bad the gap between the rich and the poor, that's very, very wide. But according to the research that was done, it seems that they do have a very positive economic growth year by year, and they actually they're doing very well economically. Their performance in 2014 and even last year, it was up to 6.1%, and that means that they are actually not the sick man of Asia.
In fact, they are the fastest rate in growth in this region after China, which is quite impressive. I think when it comes to the Philippines, economically they are doing well, but politically is their main Achilles heel, meaning that they need to fix the institution within their political system to ensure that the distribution of wealth is being equally distributed between the very rich and the very poor. Because from my personal observation, I think that the very poor of the Philippines, they are not be able, they didn't quite get the share of pie. They couldn't enjoy the economic prosperity of the nation that is having right now.
And even with their public spending that slowed down last year because of what they called the chilling effect, it seems that they stopped the flow of more money through the controversial disbursement acceleration program, which is also known as the DAP, and
not our DAP,
not
right?
our DAP. This is something else. And the government agencies have also been more careful in their disbursements, a more watchful eye under the Commission of Audit, and they are quite positive that the worst is over, that their underspending problem has been addressed, and they have found a balance now when it comes to expenditure and spending in the country.
So that means their people are not spending a lot, or their government are not spending a lot?
Government.
So in a way, I think they have a different kind of reality compared to this to Malaysia in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I found about the government is, despite potential external shocks to be posed to the downward in global oil prices, as well as the fragile world economy, I think the government is doing quite well, and the growth target of 7 to 8% for 2015 is sustainable and achievable, and I couldn't agree more. Actually, the drop in oil prices is beneficial to almost all of the Southeast Asian nation, except for Malaysia, unfortunately. But for other countries, it will actually spur the growth to the kind of achievement that they want, especially in relation to AEC, where it is important that we form a single market in Southeast Asia.
And when it comes to more job opportunities as well, it seems that they are trying to create an economy that attracts more investments and in that way generate more jobs, which their ultimate goal would be to slash the poverty. That seems to be their main focus at this moment. And if they're going to grow at a steady 1% every year, that they can probably overtake most of the countries in this region instead of setting an unrealistic goal like, okay, we'll grow by like 5 or 6% by next year. They're actually taking it slow, and they're quite consistent.
It's quite consistent in a way. And I think the government also looking at a long-term solution. So what they are doing right now is to build is to improve their infrastructure and construct more airports, subway, and also this would include the Cavite Laguna Expressway. But it will also somehow create more public-private partnership, so that the government will be able to expand and explore more opportunities by including the private sector. And on the other hand, talking about the private sector, let's talk about Jokowi's economic agenda. So apparently, neoliberal proponents are going to foil Jokowi's People's Economic Agenda. This is said by experts in Indonesia. The University of Gajah Mada Center for People's Economic Studies, or PUSPEC, has said that the ongoing conflict between the Corruption Eradication Commission, or KPK, and the National Police is merely a means to distract President Jokowi and Vice President Yusuf Kala for their People's Economy Agenda. And the center also said that the influence of neoliberal proponents must be anticipated as it contradicts the mandate of the Constitution. I'm so glad that actually their think tank are really thinking and are really trying to somehow uncover neoliberal agendas within Indonesia's economy.
And some of those neoliberal pressures would include the liberalization of energy, particularly gas and oil, which was started with the recent decision to let the fuel prices be determined by the market mechanisms, as opposed to the government trying to put in subsidies or to take it away. And they are just going to let the oil prices be determined by the market itself, which seems in their opinion to be the smarter way to do it in the country.
And another another sign of growing neoliberal economic influence is the mounting pressure on Jokowi's Kala administration to expand the corporation sector through various infrastructure development investment schemes. For example, 225.9 trillion rupiah, or equivalent to 17.64 billion US dollar deficit, has been built in to the revised State Budget 2015 draft bill, paving the way for foreign loans to enter the country. It is quite interesting how sensitive their think tanks have been in terms of trying to detect all these different neoliberal economic schemes in the country, including foreign direct investments, foreign loans, and also public-private partnership in this situation.
And at the end of the day, what they really want the Jokowi Kala administration to do is to be consistent with their Pancasila ideology and to adhere to the constitution, and also with the people's movement, in order to realize the Trisakti principle that envision an Indonesia that is sovereign in its politics, independent in its economy, and distinct in its cultural character. And that's quite a few criteria for them to follow, but we're pretty positive that they will be able to get there.
Yeah, they will get there.
They will get there.
Anyway, that's all for our news today. We will continue with our Monday Morning Matters, where we will discuss about ISIS, the threats of terrorism in the region of Southeast Asia.